Well, hello everybody. Good evening to you here on this Thursday evening, and I wanted to go ahead and give you a look at another severe weather threat that is unfortunately ready to tear across the mid-port and eastern part of our country. So from portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan all the way back into portions of Texas, Louisiana, with a focal point zone in between. We are looking at the potential for severe weather as well as flooding in some cases. Unfortunately, even places like Rolling Fork, Mississippi, devastated with more than 25 deaths. Just a very devastating situation to hear about on the news. Sad for those people after that EF4 tornadoes. There were other tornadoes across the south in last week's outbreak. So I want to go ahead and make sure I focus on this week's outbreak, as One Nation Weather is back and devoted to making sure that you get all of the accurate content. So again, it is Thursday, March 30th. We're praying for those in Mississippi. But first of all, we've got a spotty severe risk for today and tonight. This is your Thursday and Thursday night. Now, nothing is expected to be too crazy out of this, but maybe some isolated gusty winds, isolated large hail, and an isolated tornado in places like the southern Dakotas, northern Nebraska, and southwest Minnesota, as well as in a bigger zone that includes most of Oklahoma and some areas around there, close to the Arklatex, just north and west of there. But the main severe weather risk is going to develop as we go into your Friday and Friday night. Yes, this is your risk. It is going to be an extensive risk. This is the same level risk that produced the tornado in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. It needs to be treated the same as the Rolling Fork, Mississippi event. Even if your town is not hit by a tornado, you need to be ready to get in a safe place, because this is going to be a damaging wind event as well. You can see here that focal point for severe weather is in two main areas. One of them is around Memphis, Tennessee there, as well as in portions of southeast Missouri and northeastern Arkansas. And then another zone is up there in portions of eastern Iowa and northwestern Illinois. A bigger swath of this goes all the way over through Tennessee, though, portions of Ohio, portions of Michigan, and all the way back through Texas getting in on this as well. Tornadoes are going to be in the red spot, but all around this zone, we could at least see some weaker tornadoes outside of that main risk zone. Excuse the vehicle back there that you can hear on the road. And then, of course, you can see that numerous severe weather risk is in between. So here's a look at some of the severe weather ingredients that are going to be in place for this event. Surface winds, that's in knots that you're seeing on here. Anything that has two lines on it, these are called wind barbs. Any of the ones with two lines on it, according to the National Weather Service, that's about 20 knots. So the winds are going to be coming down pretty strong, a little bit more in terms of miles per hour, so maybe 20 to 30 miles per hour. Higher gusts, some gusts will exceed 50 to 60 miles per hour, according to AccuWeather. So keep in mind that southerly winds are going to be quite strong at the surface, but with height, the winds are going to be coming in even stronger from the southwest. So when you get these crossings of winds, that's what you call wind shear. Winds changing directions means that rotating storms are directly likely out of this. Now here's a look at the moisture content dew point. Whenever you get into the 60s in the spring, that's pretty high. You can even see a 70 there into portions of Louisiana, but look at how high these dew points get higher up. You can see that cold front right there. You can see the blues rushing on in behind it as dew points go quite low, allowing for cooler temperatures as well. You can see places like Iowa getting in on the dew points in the 50s and 60s. And in Iowa, while just to your north and west over there in the Dakotas, it's going to be in the 20s, you're going to be sitting near 71 in portions of Iowa, central Iowa. You can see this batch of 60s, 70s, and 80s stretches all the way back to the Gulf Coast. All of these ingredients are coming together. Everything's in place for severe weather to get going. So let's play it out here for you on the Futurecast radar. Starting off your day tomorrow, mainly quiet, maybe some rumbles of thunder in portions of Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin to start the day, as well as a shield of snow on the northern end of this. But most of the morning hours and most of the early afternoon are going to remain mainly quiet. Another big thing is going to be this band of snow that's going to work its way through the Dakotas, also into portions of northern Minnesota. I'm not going to mention it too much, as severe weather is going to be the main threat, but it could be notching out a good 6 to 12 inches of snow in some locations here, especially across the Dakotas and into Minnesota. Initializing of some of these thunderstorms may begin as early as late morning as we go into the day tomorrow, but again, these don't look to be quite as feisty until we get into the afternoon hours here. As we're talking into that lunchtime and afterwards, that's when these storms really get going. You can see the line forming southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa. You can see these storms start off as maybe some supercells through central Illinois as the day goes on, all the way back into portions of Texas. We're going to be dealing with issues. It's going to be unavoidable, and as the day goes on, these storms are just going to continue to form a line. You can see more cells going over some of the same areas here in Illinois as we end the day. 8 p.m. here for you on your Friday. Look at what the radar is going to be looking like. A big line making its way through the mid-south, as well as some of those individual cells in the north, along with that snow going on in Minnesota and northern Wisconsin here. What's even crazier is this line is going to continue into eastern Tennessee, where flooding is going to be possible. Mississippi getting in on some stronger storms into the overnight hours. You can see some of the areas that were affected by strong storms in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois will actually see it change over to snow on the back end of this. So a very destructive event expected. So what are the threats here in northern Illinois? Damaging winds are a 7 out of 8, so very considerable threat there. Tornadoes, heavy rain, and lightning all at a 6. Large hail up there as well. Flooding, a lower end risk, but something that we can't rule out. In Memphis, damaging winds, heavy rain, tornadoes, lightning, flooding, large hail, all on the table. But keep an eye out for those tornadoes, especially because when a tornado threat is at a 6 out of 8, that is something to keep in mind. And even in a place like Nashville, where the threats are a bit lower, you still have to be ready to get in a safe place with the heavy rain, lightning, and flooding as well, also in the mix. The flood risk is going to be scattered as you go into portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, and northern Alabama, as well as back into Arkansas. A general risk through most of the areas receiving that rain. And then the risk will shift eastward as we go into our Saturday and Saturday night. As you can see here, it looks like portions of the zone will be closer to that low pressure system in the northeast, and portions of Pennsylvania and New York will get on that risk, as long as along the southeast coast back into the panhandle of Florida.